I'm sorry, all those in favor of extending the meeting past 9 o'clock?
I hate to vote
Opposed?
yes.
You have an opposed? Okay. Fiona? All right. That is, but we are looking at these options and trying different avenues. Okay.
Before you move on to the topic.
You
One more
used up-
thought.
All right, go ahead.
And this is probably so far afield from what you're trying to accomplish, but could you also tell us what it would look like if you were to develop a, like an intermediary school, if you were to develop some of our schools with a K first, second grade composition, and then some of the other schools, because you might be able to accomplish this kindergarten idea through just moving, and there again, it would depend on your capacity and your enrollment, but that might be something else that you may want to look at as an alternative to 18 classrooms.
Remember 2-3 years ago, we did the capacity study. We have opportunities.
Good, excellent, good.
Well, we would have to add the 18 to 20 classrooms.
Even back then?
Well, yeah, because you're taking all of your kindergartens and doubling.
And I was, again.
Because they're half-day now, and they're gonna go full day, so that just automatically doubles the number of rooms that
Well,
you need.
I'm fully aware of that, yeah. As I was going around the state's website, I see that all of the schools offer full-day kindergarten. Do we have any full-day kindergarten at these schools right now? Not one classroom is full-day. I think in the strategic school profile, it indicates that all of these schools offer full-day.
Our schools, our public schools?
I just looked at-
No, I don't know, the only place where a child may stay all day is at Vogel.
I was gonna say, because it says on Vogel that it's offered full-day kindergarten and extended day.
Okay, it offers extended day, but it offers full day if it's an IEP, a child with special needs. We do not have,
Any full-day kindergarten.
no, it's on an individual needed basis.
We keep looking at this.
Yeah, I-
No, that's why.
Okay. Thank you.
We now have how many actual kindergarten classes? We have 21, right? Half day.
Have to, I'm not the number.
20.
I think it's either
11, we have 11 classrooms that have two
Right.
sessions.
Right, so it's approximately 21, I think, is how I calculated it. So when you say we need 21, we don't need 21 new kinder, we would only need 10 new.
20 total.
Right, so again, we go back, can we add 2 more to each building? We don't need to add 4 more to each building. We need to add
We just get fined for the renovations that we've done.
We'll look at it.
Yeah, we're
We'll
looking-
look at the
they're
number,
looking
I
at
mean,
it.
we are looking at it. I have a feeling it's gonna be cost prohibitive to do that.
All right. All right.
And I hate to do this, can I ask you this question? So it's based off your concept. Are you thinking the classrooms that are currently in Southwest, Vogel, or Ford, and Torringport that are kindergarten, keep those as kindergarten classrooms, just make them full-day kindergarten classrooms, and only move over the classrooms to East School that would normally have been half-day at those schools? Is that what you're referring to as being able to combine it down?
No, I like his idea. That isn't, I mean, that's one way of
Yeah, he was
keeping
talking
down.
about if you're using Torringford, say you have 4
Yeah, so-
kindergarten classes at Torringford.
Yeah.
He's talking about adding 4 additional rooms to Torringford, so there'd be 8.
Okay, I'm just saying
Right,
that,
Andrew?
just,
Well-
the concept of just that, if you have 2 classrooms that are half-days,
Yes.
2 of them become full days, and then the other 2 could go to east, so potentially the project may only be.
Are you going to be the one that's going to talk to the parents
Yeah.
about splitting kids?
Yeah, whose kids get to stay in
That's
the
a ball
neighborhood
away.
school?
You
and
want
who's
to
don't?
get it too.
All right, this is all in a conceptual stage, we're gonna keep seeing this coming back, so was all good input. You wrote it all down, right?
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Who is on this committee?
Ellen?
Email any questions to Ellen.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. 2013 State Single Audit Report. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
This is our audit report from June 2013. The city and Board of Ed receive the same audit every fiscal year at the end of the year. And we put it in, I brought it to budget, we brought it forward to the board because it's the first year that we've had no recommendations, which is, we've never had that, so. We're doing well.
Excellent. Neil?
Just as a clarification, we talked at budget, they've also reviewed our grants and how we've spent them, Title I and whatnot, so that can be put to rest. They are all being spent appropriately where they're supposed to be. So, important to bring that forward.
That's a good thing. That's actually- that's all right. Any other discussion on this? Okay, thank you, Daniel. That's the shortest I ever had.
I'm trying to.
Okay, gold star. All right. Cost to Ed Connection for various services. Let me look at my list. That's the. You sent a question.
I know, I lost my page. Thank you. It was asked last board meeting, because we presented all of the services that Ed Connection provides us, but we did not attach dollar amounts to those services. So, what I did was gave you the actual for 12-13 and the projected, some projected, some actual, depending on if we've had them so far for 13-14. As you can see on top, the two big areas that we receive, that we pay out to Ed Connection is our cafeteria program and our adult ed program. The adult ed program, we get reimbursed from the state, so that's the negative under that you receive, that you see under the adult ed. And the cafeteria program is its own separate entity, it's not general fund money. And everything below that is everything that we receive that comes through a grant, comes through our dues that are roughly $2,500 a year, and we receive much more benefit than what we actually pay out to Ed Connection.
Are the blanks down at the bottom numbers, like for early literacy support staff, June tuition, are those dashes mean they're not funded by grant, or we're not using them?
That it hasn't happened this year,
Okay.
or we're doing a different program.
Okay, Neil?
Under the fingerprinting, is Ed Connection doing the fingerprinting for our volunteers? Or
Yes.
are we doing-
For our volunteers.
Well, they do it. Right, so what do they charge? I mean, to me, I would expect that number to be much higher. For fingerprinting?
$40.50
Fingerprinting.
fingerprinted at EdCom.
And send the report back to us. So
that
that means
means
we've
we've
only
only
fingerprinted 6 people this year?
If they're returning from last year, the volunteers, we don't re-fingerprint them because they're already in our system. Joe would receive the report for any person that was fingerprinted in the past.
Okay, so new
If something happened.
hires, would they get
New hires pay for their own fingerprint.
separate?
They pay
Well,
themselves.
they pay their own.
This is just for
But
volunteers.
this is just for volunteers.
Okay.
That we pay for.
It's our Reader Partner Program. I mean, I thought it was anybody that volunteered at all in the schools that.
They are.
Anybody who's working with a small group of children.
But if they were fingerprinted ever before, we would get those reports, so we wouldn't have to redo it every year.
So say if somebody was working as a volunteer but had been fingerprinted 3 years earlier and then is picked up for something and arrested.
But somewhere we track that.
Yes,
Yes.
every year.
And then, the way I'm reading this, so does the adult ed cost the district $102,000?
Yeah, you had asked that a couple
Yeah.
months ago, and it never got on the
There's
board
no-
agenda. It is, our responsibility as the leading, biggest, however you wanna say it, district in this county, in this area, to provide the adult ed, and it's our responsibility to pay for it. We get reimbursement, but it's not 100%.
Not 100%, and surrounding towns send
Exactly.
to our adult ed program because they don't offer it.
Right.
That's where the, like the Collington area, where we, 37,000 live here, but 180,000 benefit services.
Right, and if the state's gonna mandate that we are the town that has to pass it, then the reimbursement should be more in line with the cost to the district, then we shouldn't be in a loss of that kind of money for them.
Just think of it like they're
Yeah.
reimbursing us for all the out-of-towners who are homeless.
Well, maybe the other towns can pony up some money to us. I mean, it's all these things that get absorbed in our budget that don't benefit the students here, that just kind of goes unnoticed. The last thing I had, the cafeteria program has an expense, but we also receive a revenue for that, correct? So that's not the true
No.
cost.
Right. This is the cost we pay, this is our contracted cost.
Right.
to connection.
But then we have revenue to offset.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the only real.
There's money in and out, and that account has had a surplus for many, many years now.
Right, so we're really just looking at the 102,695, the net for the adult ed and these other items that should go directly out of Board of Education
Correct.
dollars. to
Right,
education.
right.
Okay. That was it.
Mr. Kriebel actually had his hand up before I questioned.
Question with the Odyssey Wear license. I thought that we contracted directly with Odyssey Wear. We buy the licensing through Education Connection because we get a steeper discount.
I don't know that answer, I'll have to get back to you.
I
Okay.
believe that was when we purchased it.
Originally?
Yes, I believe that it
Okay.
was.
And
they
the
have-
fact that we're going from 7,000 to 10,500 means we've purchased more licensing?
We're increasing our online learning.
By an additional how many?
It's $700 a license.
Okay.
But it can serve, somebody can be
Well, again,
using
it
it
just,
24 hours a day.
it's like the Windows-based computer. You pay for the license on the computer, whether you have 100 people using it or one.
Mr. Graves was next.
Just, it's surprising to me to see professional development $59. And I would just, it's
Well,
not a
that-
question as much as I would just, I work for Education Connection,
Mhm.
doing staff development. It always was a conundrum to us as to why Dorrington never used Education Connection for staff development. And maybe it's not a discussion here, but we can create our own staff development. They'll provide it. So it might be something we might want to, especially with Common Core coming out and so forth. I urge you to look into that more.
You should pass that idea to the gentleman sitting next to you in the school improvement committee. Andrew?
Two questions. Fingerprinting, does the police department offer that at a, you know what their rate? I believe it's substantially less than.
So you have to get arrested.
We can't use the police department. We
And
have
why
to-
is that?
I thought it was the schools could not use that
Right.
anymore.
I believe
It
it's.
has to be done.
Right. Right. I believe it's a statute. We have to go through a state education approved fingerprint. You can't just go to the police department.
See, I was told that there was the option to use the police department or Education Connection, and if you use the police department, it would be substantially less. Doesn't really.
I don't believe
The
it.
cost is
Said it all.
Years ago, we could, but not anymore.
Okay. And then the second question is, on this adult ed program that you say we will provide to those who do not live in Torrington, what is the geographic boundaries of that? I mean,
It's a Litchfield County.
okay, it's Litchfield County, not Waterbury. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Thank you. Any way you're gonna take this conclusion?
Yes, they are.
Breakdown of Common Core standards.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
I'm Sue Lebomsky. I'm the Director of Curriculum Instruction, Assessment, and Technology, and I'm here with my fellow directors.
Kathy Sosnowski, Director of Curriculum and Instruction, English Social Studies at the secondary level.
Danny Fazioli, Director of Curriculum Instruction, Science and Math, 612.
And my focus area is K-5. We've thrown around, and even this evening, Paul just spoke about the Common Core state standards. So we thought that it would be helpful to give you a little bit of background. This is not everything you want to know about Common Core state standards, but we're afraid to ask, but we assure you. It will be a brief presentation, just giving you a little bit of foundation. And in fact, if Patty wants, we thought that would be nice to start out with just a very brief video, which is cute, it's entertaining. I think it gives you just a very simplistic look and basic foundation in your own understanding of Common Core standards. And then we'll just have a few pieces to add. Judy, the microphone.
Hold it. No, wait,
You don't need it?
not that one.
Oh. Thank you, Bob.
Like it or not, life is full of measuring sticks. How smart we are, how fast we are, how well we can, compete. But up until now, it's been pretty hard to tell how well kids are competing in school and how well they're going to do when they get out of school. We like to think that our education system does that. But when it comes to learning what they really need to be successful after graduation, is a girl in your neighborhood being taught as much as her friend over in the next one? Is a graduating senior in, say, St. Louis as prepared to get a job as the graduate in Shanghai? Well, it turns out the answer to both of these questions is no. Because for years, states have been setting different standards for what students should know and be able to do at each grade level. That's making it too hard to know if our kids are really doing well enough overall, and if they can really compete for a job someday. What we really need are clear goals. That's where the Common Core state standards come in. They're like a total sea change in education. Consistent, strong, clear benchmarks for English language arts and math. Here's how it works. You can think of kindergarten through 12th grade like a giant staircase. Each step is a skill your child needs to learn before stepping up to the next one. But right now, too many kids aren't really confident with like 2 + 2 before they have to move on to 2 × 2. We need more focus on the skills that help them move up the stairs, or they can slip up and fall behind. And there's another problem. What if everyone's stairs were made at different heights? Well, here we go again. They are. So, a boy in Seattle who's rocking an A in English literature could be getting a C on his Chicago friend's staircase. Oops. We need to create consistent steps in education too. So first, each standard creates a landing on the staircase, a stop along the way as your child heads toward high school graduation. Each stop is a chance for every parent and teacher to focus on the skills their students are supposed to know at that step, no matter the zip code, language, or race. And more importantly, each standard makes sure all students are learning what they need to know to get to graduation and beyond. Because something like counting to 100 leads to understanding dollars and cents, which eventually leads to understanding how to manage a budget. Secondly, the standards are consistent from school to school, and they match up against international standards too. Now we know how we're doing compared to just about everyone. So even though local communities will still design their own curriculum, with the same rules, everybody can compete on the same kind of staircase. But standards aren't learning. That's why we need teachers, parents, and students to help make that happen. By working together to help kids meet these standards. The world's getting more and more competitive every day. But now, when our kids get to the top of their staircase, they can have way more options on where their life goes from there. Clear goals, confident, well-prepared students. That's the Common Core State Standards.
So as you saw in the video, clear, consistent, building a foundation from K to 12 so that students are college and career ready. And this is really the push. So are standards new? No. We've done curriculum revision before. We did our curriculum revision in 2005 for math. We did it in 2006 for English language arts. So we've had standards before. This is nothing new. Now we are aligning with the standards that are called Common Core. So what does that mean? In Connecticut, several districts have already moved toward not only adopting but also implementing. In our district, we are now working, each one of us works at our grade level so that we are moving forward so that we can have the curriculum revisions in English language arts and math. We are going through this whole process. I can tell you that I'm working with Mary Spetz and all of our math collaboratives at all the different grade levels, and I'm working with the literacy specialists at the elementary so that we can roll out the curriculum, and by the end of this year we should be done with the English and the math at every grade level. So it's very exciting. I know that Patty and Kathy are going to talk about their process with the various grade levels when they talk about their subject areas in just a moment. But it is happening, okay? So when you're looking at these standards, you're not looking at somebody telling you, they are telling you the what to do, but they're not telling you how to do it. So the creative part of teaching is still there. So yes, you have to make sure that the standards are your checklist. I have to make sure that I'm teaching this, this, and this, because the next grade is depending on my students having that foundation. First grade is depending on kindergarten teachers to teach X, Y, Z so that students are ready in the next year, so that they have those foundational skills. If you're following through in the slides, we'll go to the next one. Where did they come from? Okay, no. Actually, the governors who were in the various states, because this is nationwide, it's not just Connecticut, I know you've probably heard this before, and also the state commissioners of education. They were very concerned in terms of how the students were progressing and that students weren't ready. And they heard this from a lot of folks out in business. They weren't ready for the college world, and they weren't ready once they got out of college. So we really wanted to make sure that our kids were marketable, that they could get jobs, that they could be productive citizens as they graduate or as they went on to technical schools and then went out into the workforce. So what does this look like in terms of the Common Core state standards? Building on just that whole focus, building on evidence-based. It's not enough for students to say, okay, I covered this, and I can give you the data, and I can give you the facts, and I can give you the superficial. I can tell you when I first started teaching English at the high school level back in the early 80s, every spring I was depressed because I hadn't gotten through the whole anthology, I hadn't gotten through all of the book that I was supposed to teach. Well, you couldn't. And so now it's not, I have to get through this whole piece of the curriculum. It's, did the kids understand it? It's the depth of knowledge. Can the students apply it? Are they thinking about what they're doing? Are they becoming critical thinkers? Because think about what you do in your jobs. That's really, are you a good problem solver? Are you a critical thinker? Are you collaborative? Do you have the social skills to work with other folks? Those are all things that the job market is really looking at this time. So it's all of those skills. And the Common Core breaks down listening, speaking, writing,
Research.
Thank you, research, all of those pieces so that you can bring it together. And that's really, if you think about the pieces of what you do each day, we really do want our kids to be ready in the job world. And so this is a big push for that. Okay, I just wanted to say one other piece about mobility. There actually was a slide that was in your piece. within our district. You know, back in the 1960s, as Andrew was saying, you know, the push is to go back to neighborhood schools, obviously. And for some of us who were growing up in the 1960s, we had the benefit of that, and we liked our neighborhood schools, and you went to school with the same kids forever and ever and ever. Well, we know that's not true anymore, okay? If we fast forward to 2014, people are moving all over. Our own mobility rate in Torrington could reach from 5 to 35% in a given year. Well, kids are coming from all over. They're not even just coming from our inner district schools. They're coming from all over New England. They're coming from all over every state, okay, in the United States. They're coming from all over the world. And so it's very, very different. And our needs of our students are very different. So how are we going to address that? How are we going to have that level playing field so that in the example that you saw in the video, the kids who are coming from Seattle and being graded are getting the same education as the kids in Connecticut. So it has to be comparable. And then when they go out to the job market, we know that's not the same anymore, because when we went out, or when I went out in the job market, I probably was only competing with people in Connecticut or maybe even in New England. But really now, our children or our grandchildren that are going out there, let's face it, they're competing in a global economy. They're competing with everybody all over the world. So it's a totally different environment at this point. So at that point, I'll turn it over to you.
And I'll pick it up with English and language arts, and I'm going to lump literacy in the other content areas in there as well. First, I'd like to start by redefining literacy. I think those of us that are of a certain age look at literacy as just reading, and literacy is now defined by reading, by writing, by speaking, by listening, by research, by viewing, and so we have a much broader view of literacy, which means that other content areas that traditionally did not bear a lot of responsibility for teaching reading, writing, listening, speaking, viewing skills are now held accountable for that. And so there are some main themes in English language arts. And one of them is certainly building knowledge through content-rich nonfiction. Now, I know a lot of times when we say that, and as an English teacher of over 30 years, you know, when I first saw this, I panicked. But they're looking at the totality of children's school day, not just the English teacher. And so English teachers will always have a primary responsibility for literary, for the fiction. But there are a lot of other content areas that can now step up to the plate. In the curriculum work that we've done at the middle school, we've done the 4 content areas. In the 3 grades are at least 80% done. Some are 90% done in total overhaul of curriculum, so it is now aligned to the Common Core standards. And one of the things that Patty and I have stressed to the other content area teachers, not the English teachers, but certainly the other teachers, is that their primary responsibility is still their content, but they are teaching literacy through their content. And so we are building this knowledge so that students will have this to build further. We're looking at reading, writing, and speaking grounded in evidence from the text. One of the slides that you'll see next will show you some of the differences. And in all honesty, I think as teachers, we have to take some responsibility, because we've gotten to the point of asking questions where the student really doesn't have to read the text. For some of the, I think reader response sort of took that to an extreme, and students didn't have to read the text to be able to answer the questions. And so the Common Core is a way of bringing us back to the text and to make sure that we stay grounded in the text and our questions are grounded in the text. So when students answer them, we're actually able to measure what they can do. We're looking at regular practice with complex text. And I know there's been a lot of talk about text complexity, and there is a difference in how we view text complexity. If you look through Common Core, if you look through the whole online site, they define text complexity by 3 different categories. One is certainly lexile, one is the reader's background, and one is the task that we ask them to do. I think a lot of people are defaulting to the lexile to measure text complexity because it is the easiest. But I'd like to point out that Grapes of Wrath has a grade 4 reading level. I would not give a 4th grader the Grapes of Wrath because of the content. It's what we ask kids to do that decides the text complexity. Here's an example, or non-examples and examples, of questions that could be answered not by having read the text, but just from the top of your head. Describe a time when you failed at something. Now, I don't have to read Casey it back to answer that question. And if I'm a really inventive child, I can probably write an A+ paper and not have read that. And so to use that kind of question to measure the student's ability to read is sort of disingenuous. And so these are examples, as opposed to what makes Casey's experience at bat humorous, which forces the child to go back and to look at situations, to look at language, to look at the juxtaposition of events, to find out what made them laugh. So it forces them to go back and do a little more close reading, to do a little more analysis. The same with those other questions. Did that one? The content area nonfiction, and this is where probably the biggest change will be, is that all content areas, social studies, history, science, even math, certainly the tech areas. I've had world language teachers approach me, I've had guidance counselors approach me and ask if they can, what they can do to support this. They're now held accountable for a lot of that nonfiction reading. But if you think about it, that's all those content areas do, is nonfiction reading. And so it's looking at supporting their students in their content area. I don't want them to teach poems, I don't want them to teach plays, but if you have a science text and your student can't read the science text, that behooves you as a science teacher to help the child read your text. And so it's certainly supporting and infusing this in all the content areas. Students will learn how to read nonfiction and gather information in these areas and apply other literacy skills. In a lot of ways, I did a presentation in November in Boston at a national conference on this particular topic. And in a lot of ways, informational text is probably the easiest because of the text structure itself. There are so many different signposts. The chapter titles, the subheadings, the bolded words with the definitions, the things in the margin, the footnotes. If I'm a reader and I lose my place, if my comprehension breaks, I have signposts that I can go back to and say, okay, well, I understood it to here, so it's somewhere in here. Where in fiction, this becomes a whole lot harder. It's like trying to find a polar bear in a blizzard. It just all looks white, and so it's certainly more complicated. So we would certainly like students to be doing this in those other areas. And Patty will now do math.
That brings us to math. There are 3 areas that math has for some themes to look at about focus, coherence, and rigor. When you think about changes in mathematics, the big changes that are coming aren't necessarily that the students don't have to learn math, but they have to learn how to apply the math. Where previously we might have been very top-heavy in teaching the kids about facts and being able to crank out multiplication facts and things like that. But the application of the math now is becoming more important. Traditionally, and this is what we could call the buffet approach or even the supermarket aisle approach, where K-12, we were doing everything. We were doing a little bit of everything and hoping that it was sort of going to stick. We were doing numbers and operations, which was addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, measurement and geometry, algebra and functions, which, yes, started even in kindergarten, and statistics and probability, playing games and figuring out what are the chances that, I'll pull out a red ball out of the bucket instead of a blue one. So those kinds of things are what we were doing traditionally. What Common Core has done is they've sort of clustered these ideas so that K-5 has still got an arithmetic focus, but it's really boiled down to where you're thinking about operations and algebraic thinking. Algebraic thinking can be like in 2nd grade an example of, the teacher would write on the board, 8 equals 6 plus 2, 8 equals box plus 3. And the kid has to figure out what goes in the box. That's algebra, and we're working on that with the kids, trying to figure that out. Base 10 numbers, being able to count by tens, being able to understand what do 10 tens actually mean, being able to assign one-to-one correspondence. Fractions. And then having those, and if you see the way that this graphic is set up, those ideas sort of merge into number systems when you get into middle school, and expressions and equations, which are the main ideas that you get to in middle school math, which then lead us to traditional thinking of algebra, but a true algebra where the kids really can understand what the numbers mean behind all these algebraic equations. We're connecting the learning across the grades, and we're building on prior years. And the connections in the Common Core are very clear and very focused. The priorities in math, you've got them stepped out for you on the slide. I don't really want to belabor the point on this, but we're still talking about looking at fluency, being able to give the answer of what's 4 times 3, but also what does it mean when 4 times 3 gets applied in a real world situation where you've got problems like the ones that were passed out to you that look very different from what we're used to. I mean, if you look at some of the original problems from the CAP test, we've got some basic math where you could sort of solve this without really understanding the mathematical concept behind it. But if you look at questions 3 and 4, question 3 blows your mind if you don't really understand math talk. Triangle ABC was rotated 90 degrees clockwise. It then underwent a dilation centered at the origin with a scale factor of 4. What? This is a high school question, and we've got to make sure that our kids understand what's going on. The PISA question is something that 15-year-olds worldwide take, and you'll hear this every year. The news will report on where does the United States fall compared to counterparts across the globe. Here's a good example, and you've got to be able to figure out, and there's an awful lot of information in there, but it's real-world application of math. And so we've got to get to the point with Common Core math, and this is where it's going, where the kids are not just going to be given, here's a sheet of problems, solve this, and they can spit that back to us. But given a problem, they can actually apply it. They can explain to you what does a dilation center at the origin mean, and it makes sense to them. Because this is what they're going to be expected to do in the real world. Because we want our kids to come out of school, and as a math science geek, nerd, whatever you want to call me, I want the kids to go out and be engineers, and I want them to be doctors, and I want them to go into those areas. Because that's the stuff that is going to change and improve lives. If you think about, us presenting this even through PowerPoint, go back 20 years, we'd be sitting here and I'd be, with flip chart and glue and scissors, and you can imagine what it would be. But these are the things that we want our kids to know and be able to do, and we want them to have a comfort level with it. And so Common Core is something that we're moving our kids toward. We've done a lot of work on this in the schools so far. Kathy alluded to the fact that we're probably almost 85, maybe 90% done at the middle school. So in February, we will be back to talk to you about what does Common Core adoption mean for the teachers, what does this look like in the life of a teacher, and what does it look like in the classrooms for Torrington students. Today we were just asked to present to you Common Core bird's eye view, give you a quick overview. Next month we'll look at what does it mean, boots on the ground, in the trenches with our kids and with our teachers.
I just want to editorialize for just 1 second. Because when I looked at Common Core, a teacher of 30 years, I got really excited because it's asking kids to do something we've always said kids ought to do, which is use the knowledge they get to do something with it. And so I just would urge board members who have heard all this negative stuff about Common Core, and I've seen the YouTube videos of teachers standing up and saying, I'm going to leave teaching. There was a letter in the Hartford Current, a woman saying she's leaving teaching because of Common Core. I would just ask board members to withhold some judgment, take a look at some of the standards for Common Core, and especially if you have children, and say, hey, you know what? I think you're going to say, you know what? I really think that's great for my kid to be able to do that, or to be able to think that way, and not just do some rote learning. It's the lowest level we can ask kids to do is to memorize something and spit it back to us. That's the lowest type of thinking we can ask any kid to do. This is sort of ramping it up. I will say as a teacher, teachers don't like change. I didn't like change. So they will fight against it at the beginning. I think they'll end up loving it. That's my editorializing.
And just so you know, Tashi has to leave at 11 a.m.
He sat here, figured it out. Just
Good job.
That's the right answer, too.
Yeah.
Is it?
See, so you like a challenge. That's exactly what we're looking for, the students to be engaged, okay? Because it's no longer the focus on the teacher, it's on the kids. And we'll talk more about that next month.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our book.
I know, next time. I wasn't going to mention because we don't have enough for everyone. But we will be bringing flip books that clarify for
standards.
you the standards, kindergarten through 12th grade, so you'll actually see what the expectations are at each grade level, but we will have those for you by
You will
next
show
month.
them how to unpack them.
It's not labeled Common Core for dummies.
That's, no, it's not. We won't do a new title on it. It's very user-friendly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Brady.
Mr. Chairman, in the interest of time and that there is business pending before the board, I move that items K, L, M, and N under agenda item 6 be postponed for discussion until the next regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Education.
Is there a second? Fiona? Any discussion on that? All those in favor of postponing those items? Opposed? We have 2 opposed, Mr. Rivero and Mr. Hart. Okay. So that moves us to action items. Financial statements. Chris?
Move to approve as presented.
Second?
Discussion? Yes.
These financial statements now, this is the monthly financial statement?
The monthly financial statement.
And it just pertains to those transactions that took place in this monthly period. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. There's no,
July 1st through.
July.
No, it's through.
Well, you have year to date.
okay, year
You
to
don't
date.
have just what was transacted this month alone. You have a column of year to date.
And there's no like action items, no capital improvements, nothing like that in these financial.
No proposals?
No proposals,
There's
nothing
no
like that.
proposals
This-
in.
Financial statements are the monthly financial statement.
This one is, yes.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Which one was it?
I'm not opposed.
You're the first one? Okay, unanimous. Approval of the reorganization of the Board of Ed Subcommittee monthly meetings, putting school improvement and policy together and personnel and budget. Fiona, second?
How will they be organized? Like, which ones
It's
are
always
first?
been, it always used to be policy, school improvement, budget, personnel.
Is this way they're reorganized right here, the last page of this?
No.
No.
Did you-
No, that has not been changed yet, because the
Okay,
board didn't
all right,
agree
okay.
to do that. So I have a motion by Fiona, do I have a second by Dan? Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Opposed? Oh, okay.
But it means I have to do both nights, because I'm on policy and personnel. Thank you.
You don't know that, I have to read this.
Are you gonna redo it again?
I
Okay,
have
I'm
to,
in
because we
favor
have a
then.
new member.
I'm in favor then.
Okay. Approval of the Title IX paperwork and policies 4080 and 6170.
So moved.
Ellen, second by Carl and Paul.
I'll second it.
Who's Chris?
We'll give it, we're giving it to Paul. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? We have one opposed, Mr. Nerich. Approval of policy 6021 and 4021 for non-discrimination.
So moved.
Ellen, second. Chris got the second on that one. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Mr. Nargi is opposed. Approval of the Board of Education bylaws with the new language.
So moved.
Second by Dan, motion by Ellen. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Ellen's unanimous. Consent agenda minus 6E that was removed at the beginning of the meeting.
In 6A.
What's that?
In 6A. Was removed.
It's A and C, not E. Correct.
I didn't know we removed A. It just says no report.
No, it's,
We just, the only thing we
Yeah.
amended at the beginning was to take out C because the minutes were included in the packet, but they were not approved because the meeting didn't happen. There is no report for the other. Okay. You want to amend it to remove it? No? Do we have a motion for the consent agenda? Paul, second. Dan? Comments? Favor? Opposed? Good, that one's unanimous. Comments for the good of the order? Paul?
Well, I'm hoping by starting at 6, it's not like building a wide highway and you think you're gonna get more traffic with more cars. So starting at 6 just means we can go an extra hour.
No, it's not. We're supposed
That's
to be
my
done at
hope.
9.
Okay.
Carl, anything?
None.
No.
You wanna?
I think the board needs to again reconsider going back to 2 meetings a month. I think the enormity of the information that we try to cover in one night is too much. I just think we can't get through it all.
Okay. I have 4 things. We did receive our tech grant for $781,000. It finally did come in so that we can start doing that. Our invention convention group at the middle school has been asked to produce a video for the Tonight Show, highlighting some of the students and their inventions, so that'll be going on this month. What's that? And they still desperately need judges. We all received an email for that, if anyone has the time to.
Did you read your,
And I did want to point out that when I talked to Mr. Hinman, as Mr. Rader did at the beginning, Mr. Hinman did inform me that he does have a relative in the district, so I don't want it to be a surprise to anyone. That is one of the reasons I have to reorganize those 2 nights, because I have 2 gentlemen that have relatives that can't serve on certain subcommittees. So we're reorganizing to make that a little more efficient for that operation. But he did disclose it, so I didn't want anybody or the newspaper to say it wasn't disclosed. We had a lockdown on Friday. It's been in the newspaper. There's, I think, a good amount of work was done. I think that it's an ever-evolving thing for us. We're working with the police department, fire department, correct, and Kerma to constantly improve this, and I think that overall we did a good job. And
Just with the concept of when the board does so-called legal investigations, hires our board attorney to look at areas that represent legal liability to the district. I think the board should take either a discussion item or bring it to some subcommittee maybe, just what we wanted, how we want to procedurally do it, and what should the board be looking at as far as the key issues of whether or not we want to pay for our attorney to look at a factual situation that presently may be disturbing or controversial, but not necessarily has the district been placed in legal jeopardy. So, however, that would be thought of by the chair.
That was 6K legal opinion process that just got tabled till next month. It would
See, I
have been
didn't
dealt
even-
with today.
I didn't even
It's
know
right here
that's
on your
what-
agenda.
Okay.
All right. Anything else?
No, I have none.
Okay, Dan? Jeremy, do you have anything to add, other than welcome?
I was just gonna say thank you, everybody, for allowing me to work with you fine folks, and look forward to doing a lot of good things, that's all.
Mayor? Nothing. Okay, committee reports, policy.
We're busy, busy, busy. Doing 504 absenteeism, alcohol and tobacco policy, expulsion, and grade social promotion.
That was 2 months, I stopped, right?
Yeah.
Grievance committee.
Grievance is still quite busy.
Busy for the upcoming weeks.
School improvement.
We have started looking at all-day kindergarten and how that would look if it would be implemented in 22 and the year 5.
Excellent. Budget.
Ramping up this year's budget season with lots of enthusiasm. And we are taking a serious look at the financial impact for the potential mandate of all-day kindergarten, how the district can handle it in many ways besides just East School. And we'll be reporting on that right around the time we're voting on a budget for next year.
Okay, we're gonna skip 5 and 6 because John was not able to make it tonight. Turf committee update, the pricing arrived for the options that the turf committee wanted to add. We did discover that we have just enough money to put up a bare field and a bare track. There isn't anything on the wish list, didn't make it. On the original grant application, on page 6, it showed the 3% cost increase that would have been needed, and 3.2 was the actual number. But because the paperwork added up to 2.7, that's all that DEEP gave us. So it didn't, you know, the grant was done in 2007. It never really kept up with the actual cost. So we are a little tight. I actually personally sent an email to the turf committee requesting that they, because we were, it's explained to us the money's good for 5 years with an extension to 10 if it was asked for, that we take the time to slow down this train and maybe try to procure some funding either through the budget year between the city and the Board of Ed, or seek additional grants or private fundraising, or, but I just sent that today, so there's no response on that at this point. But it is moving forward fast and furious, and they do plan on having it out to bid in 6 weeks. And they plan to have it completed by August 15th. Good. Items for upcoming agenda will be legal opinion process, tech grant update, hiring for tutors, grading procedure that were pushed from this agenda, financial statements, committee reports, and any lawsuit updates that we've had. Future meetings, which now will not really read unless changed, will read changed. Policy will be on the 5th. School improvement will be on the 5th of February. Budget will be on the 12th, and personnel will be on the 12th. And our next regular Board of Ed is the 19th, and as I said, I will get that list out hopefully by Friday of any changes. Motion to adjourn? And oh, he beat you, Carl. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Who was it, Mr. Chubb?
It was Dan, seconded by Carl.